Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sounder, created for the Sounder of Lady Hoggers. We are back on it today, on a Tuesday after a little hiatus last week due to all the crazy shit going on in our lives. So, let's get back into it. My name is Molly, as always, from the Copper Penny Farm and from my little kids' books, Wild Yonder Tales, you know. I got to throw that in there now that my books are doing okay.
Yep.
But yeah, I got all my friends with me, and today we have a special friend, a special guest that has joined us. But we'll introduce her in just a little bit. So go ahead and say hello, my friend. Laura.
I do this every time. And so I just said before we started recording, am I number two? Yes, Amanda says, you're number two. You're always number two. So sorry. Anyhow, Laura Jensen, the pig nerd here outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Still working on the federal license in terms of business. I don't know if y'all ever watched The Money Pit where they talk about 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks. My answer now is 3 weeks. Every time I get closer, 3 more weeks and it'll be done. So who knows? We'll see if this 3 weeks is the last 3 weeks or we'll get another 3-week push to make that happen. But the store's doing great. So there's that. What's happened on a personal level? Spending time with friends, went to a food show this past weekend. Thoroughly loved that. And the farm's been a little sideways. Y'all know they do that sometimes. Sick dogs, chicken got her leg hung in a fence, got a pig with some sort of uterine something bleeding. Anyhow, just life on the farm. So that's kind of what's happening here. How about you, Amanda?
Yeah, so this is Amanda Buck, and I am out here in Idaho, Buck Family Ranch, and it has just been business as usual here lately. We've just been trucking along. It started to cool off. I was telling the girls before we got on here that we recently have had mornings in the upper 30s and low 40s. So, Yep, it's starting to get chilly. We're starting to feel the fingers of winter coming. So it's still been warm during the day, but we're just kind of feeling this sense of urgency now to start getting some things done before winter sets in. So we've got some winterizing to do on the old camper to make it so we can live in it through the winter.
Yeah.
That's going to be great times.
Oh my God. I've been watching videos on how to live in your camper during the winter.
Especially in Idaho.
Like all I can think about is the freaking 50 or 60 mile per hour winds and -50 that we had this last winter. It's like, this is gonna be good times. We're gonna do it though. So figuring that out, and then also trying to get a corral built for our sheep that we can build a more permanent shelter for them to be able to have shelter through the winter when they need it, and also be able to have some, they call them jugs when you're lambing. So have some jugs set up so that when we begin lambing, probably in January or February, we'll have a place for them if we need to put them up. So kind of feeling the urgency on all that. We just got all of our hay baled, which was nice. So we have food for the sheep. But yeah, that's about all we've had going on, really. What about you, Molly?
Oh my God, it was a hell of a week, my friends. A hell of a week.
It looked like it was fun.
Dude, it was so fun, but at the same time, like driving back and forth every day really wore me out. Because I can't just leave the animals by themselves. But no, it was fantastic. But like the Russell County Fair is on this hill, right? And so you have to trek up and down this hill. My feet were so swollen by the end of the week. Like, God have mercy. But no, it was quite interesting. Just a funny story. So I took 4 pigs for the greasy pig chase, And so they told me they're like, we need them about 75 pounds for the bigger groups. And so, my pigs, they're just everywhere. There's babies, there's mediums, there's big ones. So I go out there and I'm like, I think those 2 look like they're about 80 pounds. I think those will be good. Yeah, they were like about 160. Um, so
Sorry.
So I was like, me and Melissa that works at the vet, veterinarian, we get these, and her husband Aaron, we get them into the truck, and I'm like, I think they're kind of big, but we'll try them. And so I took two smaller backups, just in case, because I knew they were going to tell me hell no, once I got there. And so here I go with these pigs, and the woman comes off the stage. She was actually my softball coach all through high school. And she comes down and she's like, "Let me see them pigs, Molly." I said, "All right." And she goes to the back, and her eyes got like huge, big as 50 pieces. She's like, "Yeah, I hope you brought some that are like 3/4 that size." And I was like, but in my mind, I was like, you know what we should do? We should do an adult greasy pig chase.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I laugh. Make them work for it. That's a lot to do.
Yeah, dude, it would have been so hilarious, but they obviously didn't go for it. But I did take the kids did chase them, but two of them I hadn't castrated yet, so I had to castrate them in the old McDonald barn before the people picked them up, and kids were mortified.
It's part of life. It's part of life.
Yep. And then I tried to feed the hog balls to the show chickens, and they told me that one.
That's our girl. You go, Molly.
Anyways, great times. It was fun. They might have me back. They might not. Not sure. We'll see. But no, it was really good. So, really, I got to do a lot of stuff with the schools. I had like 10 classes come by on Tuesday from the elementary schools, and got to do my book and stuff like that. And I sold pretty good on my books, and all went well.
Good.
So is what it is, man. But that's a little bit about what's going on. I got 4 liters about to hit the grounds anytime now, so got that too. But we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so now that I've rambled on longer than I should have, let's start the show. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All righty. So, as I said, we do have a special guest this week, and we are going to be playing off of our last episode, not last Tuesday, but the Tuesday before. We're going to be playing off of that a little bit. So, on the last one, we talked about the depression, the anxiety, the mental health awareness that is going on for farmers, and how that really affects, that certain age group in that later 20s into the 30s, and how we all get affected by that. Some of us fall out of that range. I'm falling out of that range.
I'm way out of that range.
But I still get depressed, But anyways, so we're going to play off that a little bit today, and we're going to talk about some real life happenings, and how it really has affected us in the daily tasks and stuff that we have to do on our farm, and the traumatic disasters that happen as well, that impact us. And that's where our friend Haley comes in. So we have Haley Williams. Say hello, Haley.
Hi. Thank you guys so much for having me.
And it is Haley, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I was like, I hope it's not Hallie or something like that. But anyways, thank you so much, Haley, for joining us today. So since you are new and you are a guest on our podcast today, why don't you tell those out there a little bit about yourself?
All right. So this is actually my first year farming. Last year we moved reluctantly. I did not want to move here to a small little 5 acres in the middle of nowhere. Left my hometown, hated it every step of the way. My husband was like, "Yes, we need to go. We need land. It'll be great." And I was like, "No, I don't want to leave what I know. I just, I have a whole life that I've built for, it was 29 years at the time, and I didn't want to go anywhere." But so we moved here, and I was like, okay, if I move here, I'm getting animals. because I love animals. I've always loved animals. And I was like, well, if we're going to be here, I'm going to have some. And he was like, you can get as many animals as you want.
Ah,
Yeah. That's the worst thing that a husband can say.
Yeah, that
yeah.
was so through the end of last year, so from May to December, we just kind of started buying things here and there. We got a couple cows, we had goats, we got livestock guardian dogs, we had some chickens, we got one turkey, we got some ducks, we had some rabbits. You know,
Wow.
let's figure out what we want. So we had all these different animals, and then in December, I decided I didn't want to work anymore. So I said, I'm just going to do this all the time. We'll make something out of this. We have all the animals. We're really good at raising them and keeping them alive, which is a big deal. You got to keep them going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started doing that, and my husband makes money. He's an electrician up in Atlanta. We're down in Zebulon, Georgia. So it's taken him about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to and from work. So he is putting in some work there while I'm putting in a lot of work here. We found out we kind of like smaller animals. We did not really like the cows as much. So we're going to specialize more in all the meats that you could eat other than cows. So we want to have rabbits, we want to have chickens, we want to have eggs, we want to have turkeys and pigs. And I think that's where we're gonna kind of lay for a while and see, we could, get rid of everything and just focus on one. But right now we're enjoying really all of them. I think that's the best way for me to be, is not to have one specific thing to stress about all the time. I can just kind of like walk away from whatever is super stressful and go and hang out with my pigs now. I like stuff like that. But I have no idea what I'm doing. I should point that out. This is brand new to me, and I've been winging it for over a year now.
Oh, I don't know that goes away, does it, y'all? I don't think that stops.
Well, I did the same thing. I had a professional career. Believe it or not, I actually was a professional at one point in time. But I had a professional career, and then I came home one day and I was like, yeah, I'm going to quit my job. And my husband was like, no, you're not. And I was like, yeah, but I already put in the 2 weeks, so it's happening, and then you kind of just go on from that. You really jump off. I didn't have much time to think about it. I probably would have talked myself out of it had I really thought about it. But you just go for it. And I think, doing that, because I'm a first time as well. I grew up on we just had a few pigs. We would raise a shit ton of chickens, but we raised hogs every year just for a family, but not like a farm, So I'm a first timer as well. And it's just been touch and go. But I think, like we talked in our last episode, this is the stage that is really tough, especially in the world that we live in now. It's financially strapping, which also adds on to our, mental struggles of what we also have to do on the farm as well.
Yeah. Haley, I wanted to ask a question. You had talked about you had made such a dramatic change. What drove that? Was that COVID, food security? Could you expand on that just a little bit more? I'm really curious about that.
So which transition, the actual moving or the not working?
When you talked about you had left what you knew for 20 years, there seemed to be a sense of urgency from your husband that there was a need to do that. And what was that?
Oh, it was that we had never owned a house before. So we were buying.
Okay.
Permanent. It was just such a big commitment.
Uh-huh.
And I always thought that if I moved, I would be moving toward Atlanta.
Yeah.
We both worked at the time, and he was thinking the opposite, because he really does have hillbilly roots. He does. And his out here, we have a great time. But I never thought that I would want to be away from my hometown. It's comfortable, it's out of your comfort zone. You don't want to do it. And that's really what it was. It wasn't that I didn't want animals or I didn't want land, because I had land as a child, but it was in my home.
Yeah. 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 Very cool. All right. So you jumped into a ton of animals in your first year, right off the bat. Yeah. Would you, in hindsight, would you do that again?
Absolutely. Yes.
Good.
We topped out at 400 and something. Once we did like the actual math, it was like we were, adding up, and it was right around right about 400. And honestly, I don't think that any less would have been better. I think it actually would have been harder for me if I didn't, because when we started adding a couple the first few months, like the May to December, I was still working. So I only was able to maintain a certain amount. But this was the full commitment. So this entire year was, do we want this to be what we do? Because I can always go back to work. I work remotely.
Right.
So I could always do that. Let's see how far we can go with this to see if we actually want to do it. And yeah, I mean, we got 350 chickens. We had 150 laying chickens, which we still have all those hens. They're, hanging out. And then we got 200 broilers, and we processed 200 broilers at the end of a very, very long season for us.
Yeah.
With everything else that was going on, because, we had to build all of these enclosures for them to be pastured. We had 6, oh my gosh, the hoop houses took 3 days to build each one, and I had 6 of them in the Georgia heat, and the rabbit cages, so that the poop comes down into a tray, so you can collect the poop and the pee separately for separate things. It was a lot. But if I would have done less, I wouldn't have really known what was to come. If I would have, say I would have done 50 broilers, we would have done 50 broilers in one weekend, and I would have been like, oh my God, sign me up. 600 next year, it'll be wonderful. And we wouldn't have made it. Honestly, I don't think we would have ended up with such terrible burnout next year that we wouldn't be able to continue. So now I've actually seen enough to where we know how hard it is, but not so much that we don't know where to go next year.
Yeah. Yeah. So like Molly, I kind of, I started and jumped all in too. I think we had 600 chickens here at one point. Same thing, chicken tractors and all that. And it's a lot of work. It's physically demanding. Mentally for me, there's no doubt the farm saved me from depression and darkness that had consumed my family and I. And for the chickens, I'm forever grateful for that. And then the pigs. Now that I've just lobbed out that kind of raw moment, I'm going to turn it over to you ladies and ask if you've had a similar experience with your farms and your choices.
I feel like I go ahead, Molly.
No, go ahead. I was gonna throw you out there because Amanda built her farm and everything, and then she had to get rid of all of the animals, and then she moved, and now she's trying to rebuild. So she brings in a different aspect of it as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like I can relate to the moving and kind of when we were in North Carolina, we were living in my hometown. And we had taken our little house. It was in the woods, and we had cleared land, made pastures, added on to our house to make it work better for our family, and really built a farm. We were leasing pasture across the river from us to put our cows on. And then our land, we were raising chickens and pigs on, and had a really good thing going. We had established a customer base. We were selling eggs, pastured poultry. We had just started with woodland raised pork, and we're growing a cattle herd. And I don't know, it was a decision that both my husband and I made to move. We wanted to move, but it was so hard. It was so hard. The emotional toll, one, telling my family was extremely hard, because it's not like we're just moving a county away. I mean, we moved all the way to the country. And my parents lived a half mile down the road from us. So they were essentially neighbors. And so to tell them and to tell our friends and family at church was really hard. And then I think the actual doing it, like having to find new homes for animals was so hard, because it's like with each animal, you had a plan for them. You had a plan. One, you'd had a bond because you'd raised them. You'd been their caregiver for so long. And then all of a sudden you're placing it in the hands, some of them, of total strangers, in hopes that they're going to care for them in the way that you would, but also in hopes that maybe they can live out the same purpose on that farm that they would have served on yours. And that was really hard. That was a really hard thing. I think the only one that wasn't as heartbreaking, like I was still so sad, but the only one that wasn't as heartbreaking, because I knew she was going to be just fine, was taking Wanda back to Molly.
Yes.
Red Waddle guilt that I was like, I wanted to move her. Like we had even talked about bringing her and one of our other guilts out here with us. But I knew at the time that we were moving, one, it was going to be super stressful to haul them that far. And secondly, it was just, we were going to be bringing them from a, pretty moderate to warm fall in North Carolina to, I mean, we're already getting into the 30s at night here. So it was going to be a pretty big change. And I felt like we would not have had the shelter ready for them to live and be comfortable. And it also, they would not have had the time to adjust. You know how animals, like as you're heading into winter, they put on more fat, they have a heavier coat, things like that. I just felt like we were going to be throwing them into a situation where it was going to be mega stress, and so we couldn't do it. But I feel like I can really relate to some of what you're saying with like the animals and the move, and just it's just a lot. It can be a lot at times.
Yeah. Was that depressive to be in between, to be without animals after doing that?
Yes, I felt like I did not have a sense of purpose. Like,
Oh.
obviously, I did, because I still have 3 children. Like, I'm still raising my kids. I'm still a wife. But it just felt like when you go from caring for hundreds of chickens and we are processing chickens monthly, having cows that you're going to check on and feed daily, you know, working with pigs, moving chickens, doing this, doing that, to all of a sudden having none of that, it's like, I don't know what to do with my life anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was in mega funk. I think I reached like an emotional stress peak probably from October through December of last year. It was well, really probably July through December of last year. The whole last half of 2022, it was so bad. And I think it was just emotional stress and a lot of anxiety. And I feel like I use the term depression very lightly, because I've never been diagnosed with anything like that. But or I don't use the word depression lightly. But I would say that I definitely had some severe anxiety and for sure emotional stress that was majorly impacting my life.
Yeah.
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 I think that we see it from different aspects, like moving, starting over new, that's a whole new thing.
Yeah.
Quitting your job to start over new, that's a whole new thing. You're going into a whole new aspect of life. Being first time farmers, you're going to a whole new aspect of life that is draining as well, because you have to learn, you have to go through trials and errors, but then, getting to one of the significant parts of what we want to talk about today, then it comes to, well, you've got all these animals, right? And you can't keep them forever, because feed is, you're a farm. So you're providing, you're providing for yourself, or you're going to provide for others. And so all these animals that you took in and you love them and you cherish them, they're like your family. And then the day comes, well, they've got to, it comes full circle of life comes around to the table. And then you're on a whole new level of stress and anxiety as well, and sadness, because, they've got to be put into the freezer.
Yeah. Yeah. Freezer camp. That's a tough decision.
Yeah.
It is a tough decision. And, and I'm very open if you follow me, on my Facebook and stuff, I'm very open about my feelings and my emotional attachment to my animals, especially my pigs. You know, when I moved down there, I started out with one hog, and I was like, I'm just gonna raise a few for family or for myself. And I already had a kill station, a harvest station on my farm. So I was like, I'm gonna do farm to table.
Mhm.
They're gonna farrow here and they're gonna be finished here. And then I had my litter of pigs and I saw little babies come out, and their eyelashes, and they smell so good. They smell like there's nothing that smells better than a little baby pig, you know?
Yep.
And I was like, holy shit, I can't kill these fuckers. Like, what am I gonna do? You know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so then, I went to a straight breeding program where I just was producing as many baby pigs as I could because that's what made my heart feel good, you
Mhm.
know. And then it comes the time where I had to harvest my hogs. And it was very sad to me. And I did cry and I did have an emotional breakdown. But when I saw what was vacuum sealed and put in my freezer, and then I saw it on my plate, I was so proud of myself for doing that. Like, it's
Mhm.
a whole new pride. Like, you saw that come to life. You fed that, you nurtured that, and it provided so much for your family. And I was also
Mhm.
proud of my animal. I was like, damn, she's beautiful, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Like I
gorgeous
said,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, on the hoof and, on the plate, she was beautiful. And so, that helped me, but it also is very emotional draining. If you didn't grow up like this, it's hard to get that concept.
Yeah. So Haley, having done your this chicken processing that y'all just did, that was your first one, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It
So how do you feel about that? I mean, I remember our first one and just having feelings of like almost dread leading up to the day, but then afterward,
Mhm.
so empowered and like really, really proud. What was your experience?
not that.
No.
I think it goes back to the beginning. When we moved here, my husband wanted to raise our meat. And I said no, like never in a million years do something like that. Because like my entire life has been like taking care of animals, just raising them and loving them unconditionally, making sure like I was just always the animal person. That's why I've gotten like different kinds of feedback from everyone that has known me previously. And it was weird. But it actually, I mentally and spiritually went through this journey the entire time knowing that we're buying these chickens, we're going to raise these chickens and give them the best life they could ever have for the amount of time that we've allotted them, and then we will process them and we will feed our family and our friends for, like just give them the best meat possible. So I knew all of these things. You can wrap your head around those things as much as you want to, and you can pray about it and you can meditate on it and you can find your center through the entire process. But when I walked outside and there was no one there anymore, it wasn't the same. There was nothing that could really prepare me for that, because it was funny. We did 150 in one weekend. It was the longest weekend of my life, and
Yeah.
we were so exhausted,
Yeah.
and I was fine. Honestly, I thought, this is great. Like, I've done something here. Like, we've done it, and I'm still getting this feedback from people. They're like, how could you do this? How could you go from this person to this person? And I'm like, I don't really know what you're talking about. We still had 50 chickens outside. So
Yeah.
it was kind of like a pause. So I didn't really process it. That was like just a moment of pause. And I knew it was a moment of pause, but I tried even harder to really like ask for guidance, and appreciate the chickens that we did process, and it was it was just the pause. Once they were gone, we waited a couple more weeks just because my husband was sick and we didn't want to handle any chicken while he was sick. And then we process the next 50. And then it was funny. We went over to, it was Memorial Weekend, and we went over to a party that we had just committed to going to. And my husband's like, we've been killing chickens all day. And I'm like, stop. Stop saying this out loud to people. Like, he's so proud of himself. And I'm just like crumbling. And I could tell that I was crumbling because I knew what tomorrow was going to look like. And it did. I went outside, and for 3 days, I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to go outside anymore. I didn't want to even see my other animals. I didn't want the purpose anymore. I wanted to just stop because I didn't know a lot of things. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do this again, and I was going to disappoint my husband with this entire year being a flop. I didn't know if I was going to feel like this every single time, or if it was actually the latter of that, where I don't feel it anymore. And then I'm not who I was, that really does love animals and, like grieve the loss of any of them. Like I'm processing a mass murder, and my husband is like, oh, you did a great job here. Like,
yeah, wow.
Things, but it's just going from one extreme to the other extreme was so hard, because like you were saying, Laura, these animals were the only reason that I made it through this move. If I wasn't animals when I moved here, I don't know what would have happened, but I know I had like a whole mental breakdown. I hated everyone. Like I've told Laura this before, I've been sober for 6 years, and my entire support group is there where I used to live. So to leave them, I disconnected. I felt like they didn't need me because I wasn't there anymore. So then you start thinking like, what have you been to them for 6 years?
Wow. Yeah.
It's tough. So these animals, I start talking to animals all day. I don't have my friends anymore, so I'm just hanging out with them. And to go from like, this is what I needed, to now I'm taking the life of something. It wasn't easy. I will say it was very difficult.
Yeah. I always say if it gets easy, I got to get out. If I'm ever callous about it, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. I think at one point I was going to go to Iowa and be over a major pig farm, right? And the thing is like on my farm, I'm not super small, but I'm definitely not large, and I know every single one of my animals. I check on them every day. I sit with them. I do all this stuff. And when I have baby pigs, I always take in the runts. I'm always trying to give them the best life and try to get them to survive. The handicap, I got a bunch of handicap hogs out there because my heart just was like, I can't. They have life in their eyes, so I feel like they want to live, And then, talking to the man that owned the farm in Iowa, he was like, when you get out here, you can't do that because this is a business. We don't, it's nature has to run its course. We don't control it. We don't try to put all of our time into the ones that are weak, because you have to move on, and to me, that hurt my feelings, because I had built my farm and my life on being the one that, did provide and did help and did want to succeed, and then it hurt my feelings. I was like, but you just let them die. And he was like, no, we culled them at a young age. I was like, holy shit, I can't do that, but I think that there are two different styles of farmers, and we talk about this all the time. There is the business farmers, where it is business. You do what you got to do, but then there's also us as small farmers who are emotionally invested, and that's why it's so hard. People can say whatever about small farmers, but I feel like we have it the hardest, because we are so dependent on that stock. We are so emotionally invested because we
Mhm.
don't have a backup, and it is
Mhm.
hard for us to be the business side as small farmers.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well,
it's tough. Go ahead,
I
Amanda.
do. I think for a lot of us, I mean, look at the four of us and how animals for us, like, yes, we're small farmers, but animals have also been what has helped our hearts heal or helped our souls feel peace or,
Yes.
you know, be given us a purpose outside of our everyday roles as wives or mothers or friends or daughters or whatever it may be. And so I think that that makes that bond and attachment to an animal really, really strong. And when you, I mean, I feel like we're the same way. The number of times that we have tried to nurse, help a little baby chick who is down and you just want to help it and make it so that it doesn't die,
Yeah.
or bottle feeding a baby kitten every 2 hours, or, here before long, we may have lambs that we're doing that with. I don't know. But it's just like, I feel like when you put so much into it, you have the emotional attachment. And as a small farmer, you don't have often, maybe not everybody feels this way, but I know in our situation, we are depending on our animals to thrive and survive.
But sustained.
Exactly. It's not expendable. Like, we can't just say, oh, well, we're just going to cull that one. Like, yeah, you may put more into it. You may put more of your time and effort into it. But at the end of the day, if it's an animal that will thrive on your farm because you put in that little bit extra, to us, that's worth it. We're not a big operation where we can just be like, well, here's the number. This one is not meeting this. We're going to,
Right.
we,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I faced that with the Maison when we were doing, we did the year of 21 of 140 some pigs in a year, and it became a real business. And I truly hated that because
yeah,
it was a slot on the farm. There was only so much land, there's only so much feed, only so much money, and it forced decisions that I hated. And that was a huge relief on me when we scaled down. And that was definitely one of the reasons why my heart was having a hard time.
yeah. I feel like you have to find that balance of profitability and emotional stability, or
Hmm.
find that balance so that you're not just completely overwhelmed or totally off kilter, because otherwise it's not fun anymore. It's not
No.
enjoyable, and
Mm-mm.
it's too much.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I want to go back just a little bit on what Haley said. So, and if she doesn't want me to talk about that, we can cut it out. But you said, Haley, that you had been sober for like 6 years, right? And so you reaching the point where your support system was in a different place, and now you're at this emotional stressful time in your life. Sobriety, I think we all struggle with things. you know
Hmm.
I have struggled with things in my life. And I've been sober from some things for some years. But when I came out there to my farm, it did help me, right? And I felt proud of what I was doing. But when it came to the point where I decided that I was going to have to harvest animals, or I seen animals dying, I felt like maybe I should go back to my old ways, to help me cope with the stress, because that's what I had always done previously. That was my coping mechanism, you know. And so I think that when we go to our small farms and everything, it is beautiful and it is a beautiful life. But when we get those triggers, we realize what has to be done. We start getting triggered, and then it can send us into a little bit of an extra whirlwind as well.
I think so. It's funny because I was listening to the last podcast about depression and anxiety and how this is like such a normal thing in agriculture. And of course, me being who I am and having dealt with those things before, I would go straight into something like this. I mean, what else would I do?
Yeah.
You know, I'm drawn to things like that. It's like I'm drawn to that kind of person too. Like my partner is also recovering. So it's funny, you know, we're just drawn to that kind of stuff. But yeah, what you were saying about like going back, you know, I didn't really know what I was missing. And it's funny now in hindsight, I know what I was missing, but being over here away from everything that had gotten me sober is it's a very hard thing to do because you can't just fit into a new group because they're not going to understand. And even if I call those old friends, I mean, I still am like really good friends with all of them, and I see them on a, you know, almost regular basis, you know, as much as I can being where I am. But they're not going to understand that I can't go to a meeting. They're not going to get it because, you know, at the beginning, I could go 4 times a day. I don't get that luxury. I don't even get once a day. I don't get to leave here very often. And they're not going to understand the struggles of anything to do with my animals. And if that's the only thing that I'm surrounded by anymore, what do you do? You know, I can't call them and vent to them because it's not the same problems anymore. It's not the same. And as much as I don't want to drink anymore, and I didn't go back to that, I understand that there's a lot of it could have happened. It could have very easily happened to me. It just did not happen. But I really just dove in even harder. It's been long enough for me that that's just not my solution anymore. And I really do think that that was more God than me, because I have been very weak over the last year and a half, like very, very weak moments that I wouldn't have expected from myself. You know, and you don't really want to give yourself that grace either. And there's not really anyone that I could find talking about what I was going through until now, which is so funny. It makes perfect sense that this is what I was missing, that this group of women and being able to listen to like the honest farming is what was actually missing, because I do have support. I do randomly run across wonderful women in agriculture. And I'm still, like everyone that I've met, I'm like, okay, well, let's stay in touch. You know, we need to stay in touch because I need some kind of, what you were saying, community. But for me, it's a family. I mean, it is. Like there's no other way for me to explain that, because it's the same with my sobriety. That's the family I got to choose, and this is the family that I'm choosing. It's just another way to choose my family. You know, if you don't do the same things, then do you want to be isolated? Like that was what I was feeling, is like, am I the only person who got sober and then moved away and got a whole bunch of animals? Like, where are they? Like, people, you know, but it's not that you have to be sober. And that's another thing that I've been able to find in the last year, is that that's not the only people I have something in common with. I think it is because there's such a spiritual lifestyle that you have to have, but that's not true. There's spirituality everywhere. I find it everywhere because I have to. I don't have a choice now.
I think though that, you know, because I've lived a little bit of everywhere. I mean, I've traveled around and done my own thing. You know, I had a bit of a wild life. But what I realized about myself was that, you know, I was always struggling for, I was starving for something. I just could not figure out what that was. You know, I felt like I was lost all the time, even in the moments that I really thought I knew myself. I was truly lost because that wasn't myself, you know. And then when I came to my farm, as soon as and I've said this 100 times, as soon as I dropped off that road, Haley, you don't know where I live at, but I live like way far out. But as soon as I dropped off that road, I felt something like in my gut, like this is it, you know? And in reality, what I feel like I was just lost in who I was. And me being on the farm, me having those animals, and me actually witnessing the entire circle of life, right? And I see the process, I see everything that's going on. I'm in nature. I spend a lot of time by myself as well. Um, it really brought everything full circle to me and makes me appreciate things in a whole different way. I see myself differently, and I view, when I first was out there, I wanted everything to live and everything to thrive, and I wasn't going to harvest nothing. But now that I actually understand nature and how it works, I see how what my farm's benefit is. I'm showing life, I'm showing what they are providing and how it should be done, and what those nutrients that are coming out of those animals that I loved are doing to my body, my mind, my soul, and all those around me. I think we have to get to the rawest form of ourselves, for us to really appreciate what a farm actually is.
That's
Yeah,
beautifully said.
I
Yeah.
agree. I was just gonna say, I think that's putting it so beautifully, because the love and attention that we give to those animals, we tell our kids all the time, the first time that we processed chickens, they really struggled with that. And we wanted them to be involved in it if they were willing to be, because we felt like they had put in the time and effort to help raise them. And, they helped us with it. But they kind of were, I mean, our son, he's our oldest, and he is so tender hearted. He's got the biggest personality, but he's extremely tender-hearted. And he just
He's
was
such a
so,
lover.
he is. And he was sad. Like, he hated going out there to take care of those chickens. But at the same time, like, he enjoyed it at first, and then he got to the point where he hated it, because he was like, they're hard to move. The water bucket's heavy, all this, it's just a lot of work. And he was done. He was over it. But at the same time, processing them, he just had a really hard time with it. And we told him, here's the thing. We make the choice to eat meat. And if we're just going to the store and buying it, a lot of times those chickens are not given the beautiful life that we're giving it. We're giving them daily love, and we're providing them with excellent food. They're getting to see and enjoy the sunshine, fresh air, grass, the ground, like all of these things. We're giving them so much love. And in return, they're going to give our bodies that back. And
Mhm.
anybody who eats our meat will feel and taste that difference. And I think that is one of the most beautiful ways to look at it. If you are going to choose to eat meat and process your own animals, or have your animals harvested and processed, I feel like that is such a beautiful way to look at it. And in my opinion, the only way to look at it that makes it hurt a little bit less to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, I looked at it like one day I was like, okay, for how many years I have been out here buying chicken, buying pork, buying beef, whatever from the store, right? And then
Mhm.
you see how those animals live. And they were miserable,
Mhm.
and this is my weird way of coping with it. But I was like, okay, so I feel like when I eat that, I was eating misery, right?
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
what those animals were giving to me was fueling my misery within myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what
So
my husband
then,
says. Yeah.
yeah. So then I was like, so then I moved out to the farm, and I'm like, okay, if I love to eat meat. I'm a huge meat eater. I was like, but I love my animals, and I'm eating, I'm harvesting them in love, and I'm eating them with joy, and they're filled with love. And that's what I'm consuming.
Mhm.
And in my weird way of processing, that made me feel better.
Yeah.
Like I'm taking in the love, and I'm taking in the joy. I'm not taking in the misery and the bad living. You know,
Yeah.
may,
Yeah.
may sound odd, but that's how I coped with it.
No, I totally relate. For me, I looked at being vegetarian, and I tried it because when I realized how mass-produced meats were raised, it's a lot of what you said, Molly, and it hurt my heart that that's how animals were treated and raised. Now you can listen to other podcasts and get more on the insight on that. I mean, I understand it kind of has to happen now, but at that time, I couldn't reconcile eating that and feeding my family that. But after 2 weeks of not eating meat, I knew that wasn't an option either. I love meat, you know. So if I was gonna eat meat, I was going to make sure it was the cleanest, most well raised, happiest out there with one bad day. And that's been essentially what I've built the store on is farms that have that similar mindset, because I do think, like you're saying, there's energy to everything. And
Yes.
if something is miserable and you're eating misery, you know, it takes a toll on us.
Yeah, it does. It's like living on your farm, you know, in the situation that my life is in now. You know, you get what you put out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I feel like. You know, if you're motherfucking this and GD that and you're all this, you know, you reap the benefits, or not the benefits, but you reap the repercussions of that. You know,
Right.
you get what you put out. And
Yeah.
and how I feel is, you know, I'm very, although, you know, it can be sad, and it's so beautiful, you know, that I don't do that. I try to put love and joy and everything and try to find a silver lining, you know, and that does help me, and I reap from that what I'm putting out, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I feel like that's how I hope that people go into it, like, Haley, you know, yes, it's sad, but we also have to see the beauty of that and reap
Mm-hmm.
the benefits of what that is bringing to us. And there's always more chickens and there's always more pigs that we can add, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we just keep on loving them as we go. And we've loved a many, you know,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of it.
Yeah. Something I'd like to talk about a little bit more is this disconnect that we just touched on. And I think it's that moment that the four of us have all identified as farmers and caretakers of these animals, that we have to reconcile that one bad day.
Yes.
But what about our friends and our family that effectively judge us for it and have negatives and how dare yous about it? What do y'all think about that?
Okay. I think, though, a lot of that does come from where we live and how we're. Okay. So,
How or
okay,
what,
I
Molly?
think
It
that,
froze.
okay,
Pause.
okay, sorry.
You're gonna
I
have to
think,
say that again.
Yeah,
okay.
where we live and how we, and then it stops. So
Okay. I think it comes from the culture that we're raised in, right?
uh-huh.
So Haley, you know, was raised, I'm going to guess, like in a city setting,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
close, well, maybe 30 minutes outside of Atlanta.
Yeah.
So it's definitely the culture that I grew up with. It's just we go to the store, you know, and it's funny I started watching videos to learn how to actually process these chickens. And the first one that I watched, it was Joel Salatin, and it was a wonderful video. But when I tell you, my stomach was turning, like I could not eat breakfast watching this video. And then as soon as it got on the table and it was plucked and the head was gone and the feet were gone, I was no longer sick.
Yeah.
How was that? And that's when I knew that it was just how I was raised. That's the moment. Like that's the clarity that I needed. And then it was, okay, where do we go from here? What do we do now to try to make sure that I'll be able to get through the whole thing when the time comes? So I just kept watching. I just kept doing that and knowing that if I go in with good intentions, and that's really why I liked Joel's approach, is because every single time that I've watched him talk about anything to do with a meat animal, he always is talking about love and respect for that animal. And that's really what I wanted to do. I want to respect that animal from beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what I was getting at. I think that, you know, I grew up in a family that we did harvest animals. I may not have been there for the whole process, but I knew what was going on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, and where I live, it's major farming. 90% of these people could give a fuck less about an animal dying, because
Mm-hmm.
they've been doing it their whole lives. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a misconception about, because everybody likes to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
90% of people like to eat meat, but if you're not raised in this lifestyle, all you see is the commercialization. You see the brutality, you see the bad sides of it because you didn't live it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for people, if you are living like Haley was living that life and then she moved to the farm. Well, of course, her people are not going to see that because they've never witnessed it. They don't understand it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where it is. It's just a misconception of how when you're raised, you never saw it until
Mm-hmm.
you actually make the decision to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, there's this glamorized side of farming. We've talked about it, like the rainbows and butterflies of Instagram and YouTube and things like that, where you see people who can have farms where they have animals who come and live there and live out all of their days there. They have this beautiful life. And while we would love to be able to do that, um, in a lot of ways, and for a lot of people, it's just not feasible. And
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, when we went to go pick up our new sheep a couple weeks ago, we came home with our little bummer lamb, Peanut. And I, even though he is a wether and we would typically harvest those, I cannot even begin to wrap my head around doing that to him because he is just the sweetest little baby lamb.
Yeah.
And honestly, he's gonna get older and be bigger, and maybe in a year we'll reevaluate. But I'm also in my mind, I'm like, I know that he can serve a purpose here, even just being what he is. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we have to separate our ram from the rest of our flock of sheep, he Peanut can go and stay with him and be his little buddy so he's not lonely. Or if we have sheep or lambs that are injured and we need to nurse them a little bit and for them to not feel lonely or like they're isolated from the flock, Peanut can go in with them. I feel like he can still serve a purpose here. A lot of times we don't have the luxury of being able to do that where you just hold on to an animal because um sometimes you really do have to have a bottom line where you can't just have them all there to live there for forever because you can't afford to do that. You may not have the land or facilities to do that. But I think that a lot of people associate, if you're sharing pictures of your chickens or this or that or whatever on your farm, people associate what you're doing with this glamorized version of it. And that's not typically what it is.
Yeah.
And I think people really struggle with that. They struggle with the thought of like, well, how could you eat that animal? How could you do
Right.
that? But
Right.
some of these animals, we are raising them for that purpose. That's what
Well,
their in life is for
yeah.
us. And we're going to make their lives the very best they can possibly be until that day, until that bad day.
Well, and I know a lot of people never think about this. It's the technical side of it, and I hate to be so blunt, but what exactly are you going to do with a 600-pound carcass when it dies?
Yeah,
With these pigs, and not everybody has a tractor and a bucket and the ability to do something with it, and that's
exactly.
just a hard reality. And what are you going to do with your chickens, Haley? If because the Cornish crosses, I think you said they were, they start developing issues. So there's a
So,
point that you have to think about end of life, and what does that look like?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's, I get people talk shit to me all the time
I'm sure.
because I keep, a lot. I've got okay, I got Jerry Lee, Tammy Faye, I got Roslyn, I got, Evie, I got all these, right?
Uh-huh.
And they're like, what are you doing? Like I mean, I got 3 hogs that sleep on my porch, you know, like, and they just keep growing. Jerry's gonna be 1,000-pound fucking hog sleeping on my rug. But
But yeah, but you're gonna do something about it. You're gonna write a book about it.
That's right.
And that's going to pay their feed bill.
That's right. But so, like, I do have my old sow Penny, and I do get a lot of grief about Penny because Penny is older, and Penny, she's raggedy now, but she's still producing babies, and she still loves them, and she gives me grief, but I love her. My dad's like, you've wasted 700 pounds of meat on that damn hog. We could have filled a freezer with her,
Mhm.
and I think though that I came to the point where I had to associate those that I knew that I loved and I cherished, and I'll have to deal with them when they pass as they do. But I also had to quit getting so attached to those that had to go to be processed, because at the end of the day, I am running a farm. I have to make money,
Mhm.
So now I do not go out. When my pigs have babies, I go out there, I check on them. I don't pick any of them out. I try to let them do what they do, because I don't want to get my feelings involved,
Mhm.
And I think that's been the hardest part for me, is desensitizing the love that I had for seeing all the baby pigs and picking them out,
Mhm.
and really understanding that I have to have a purpose, because if I'm going to run a farm, I've got to make fucking money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and I think you can still provide love and care for an animal, even if you don't have a strong emotional attachment to it. I think you can still love and respect and honor the animals that you have without having that emotional attachment. And that's such a weird, like, finding that and figuring that out. It takes a little bit of time, and just figuring out how to do that. And I know for me, I can do that, but I still have to have the one or two that I have the emotional attachment to.
Yes, that's me.
Yes. So that
Yeah.
I can still love the animal and love what I'm doing, and just have that connection with it. And so I feel like there's definitely a balance there. There's a fine line, but it can be done.
Yes.
Yeah, well, but you got to think about it too. Chickens, a lot of, like, I've been told when I first got chickens, buddy, I put so much money into that $2 chicken, like trying to, you know what I mean?
Yep,
And
been there.
I went to the store one time because I had a hen that got her ass bit off by a dog, right?
Wow.
But she lived. But I put so much money into her to get her to live. And I went to the store and I was buying something. And the woman asked me if something had happened. And I said, I'm trying to save a chicken. And she said, honey, them chickens are $2. Go to Rural King and get you another, And I was like, yeah, but I can't, whatever.
Right. Yeah, but I can't. Yeah.
But I think, though, just like the Cornish crosses, right?
Mhm.
Their goal, they are not created to live forever. They are
No.
created for a purpose.
Yeah. Especially in this Georgia heat, right, Haley?
That was our one bad day, was with the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
we used to raise Cornish crosses as well. And they would we would let them go too long to where their legs would actually break.
Right.
Because,
Yeah. Or they start dying of heart problems.
Heart
It's not a
yeah.
not a breed for longevity.
No.
Yeah. And so that helped me as well, because I'm like, okay, they were designed to be harvested so that they don't go through misery.
Exactly. So they don't suffer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we definitely have leg issues sometimes. We'd have heart issues sometimes. We'd also sometimes have issues with prolapse.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Had that happen too. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, Haley, what do you think about all this? I know we get to talking, jump in there. So talking about kind of friends and family and this journey, what would you add?
So I think there's not enough time to explain to everybody that I know what I was trying to do, because I didn't really know what I was trying to do. Like in the first year, you really are just trying to figure it out. I don't know what our brand would be. And we just figured out a name. We haven't figured out any of the business aspects of it. we didn't even know if this was something that we wanted to pursue, and then keeping them alive. I'm over here
Yeah.
myself every day to keep all these animals happy. They eat breakfast and dinner before I do, and I make sure that happens every single day. And then let's kill 200 of them. Like that's hard for me to figure out what I'm doing, much less try to explain to someone else everything else that we've been talking about, and the reason and the purpose, and all of these things, going in with love and respect, and then taking their life in the respect. Like nobody can understand that. And we touched on it earlier that my family was not super supportive. And sometimes they didn't even mean to be unsupportive. Sometimes they would just hit me with I can't believe that this is what you're going to do. And it wasn't even in this like disappointment. It was just confusion. But it stays with you whenever you're in a really sad state. Every single thing replayed in my head. I had my mom who wouldn't even talk to me about the chickens, refused to, because this isn't who I am. This isn't how I was raised, and that's fine. But now I'm having to figure it out because I wasn't raised this way, and not getting resentments because I didn't know how do I not know how to feed my family, and I can't do this, and I can't garden, like there's this laundry list of things that I don't know how to do as a parent. And it's really hard to not with I'm not raised that way, and it's come to them with the love and try to explain. And it's so hard when you're at the very beginning. I think you don't know if you're gonna stop caring, like what you were talking about, desensitizing with your pigs, Molly. Like I was terrified that was going to happen, and I don't want to lose who I am ever. I want to be this devastated every single time. Now that I'm coming out on the other side, and I know that it's temporary and it's not a permanent feeling, and it is just a feeling of grief, knowing that and moving through those feelings is completely fine with me, because I want to stay this person who loves animals and respects them more than I respect my own well-being. Like I want to always contribute something to the world. And it's hard to say that to somebody that has never killed anything, taken the life of anything for the good. Like they don't understand it. And I get that because I was there a year ago. I was there less.
Yeah. Well, I think though that, we can talk a little bit about too, going back on, it is all about your support system and connecting. It's networking. It's finding your community. It's, reaching out to those, when I first started, I reached out to so many people, and majority never got back with me. But they weren't meant to be in my life, and I'm okay with that. I knew that the right people would come along and I would connect with the right people. And, I found Amanda, I found Laura, I found, many people. I got a really good friend, Marilyn. Like I found those people, and that's what we have to do. We have to be vulnerable once again, to put ourselves out there into the community to find those that connect with us. And that was the reason that, one of the main reasons I created a Sounder of Lady Hoggers. It was to bring together us women so that we can connect on a level that we're all living this life, and we can find those that are on the same path as us and maybe relate. And it's just being vulnerable and putting yourself out there to find that community. Or, I found an artistic side to myself. It's finding those things, thinking out of the box, and finding new ways to release your sadness, your anxiety. Doesn't matter. Like I started doing doodles and I wrote kids' books, taking pictures, whatever. It's trying to find an outlet and also a community to help you personally.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I think also within that community, Haley, how you were talking about, there's so many things that you feel like you don't know how to do. I feel like when I was in North Carolina, I was like that homesteader crunchy friend that knew how to do all the things. Now that I'm here, it's like whole new level. I feel like I'm back at the beginning where I don't know what I'm doing because people here, things are not convenient like they are back east. We have really harsh winters. So you have to plan for that. But in addition to that, it's like, I mean, people, they can, they hunt, they fish. Like we have friends that we were hanging out there the other day and their 18-year-old son was currently working out on a like a feedlot. He also lives in a camper, but he'd come home for the weekend to wash his clothes and he comes out and he goes, "Mom, where's the goose meat?" It's like she goes, did you look underneath all the elk? And he's like, "Yeah, I found the antelope, but I can't find the goose meat."
That's different.
Yeah, okay. This is an 18-year-old kid who's not like, "Hey, have you seen some ground beef?" He's like, "Well, I found the elk and the antelope, but I'm looking for the goose." Like, what? So I feel like there's so many things that I don't know. I don't know. I can shoot a handgun, but I don't know how to do these. Like if I had coyotes come up on our property right now, I could throw rocks and yell at them. Like I feel like there's so many things that I need to learn and want to learn. I have the desire to learn how to do these things. And it's just finding that community that can help teach you those things and be supportive and encouraging. And also realizing like even when you feel overwhelmed that there's so many things you want to learn that you don't currently know how to do, that you want to be able to do to provide for your family, you are not alone with that. Like
Mm-hmm.
some of us who I thought that I was like, "Oh, I got this." And then I come out here and I'm like, I don't got it. Yeah, so you're always going to run into people like that that you're going to find you're on the same page with, even if you think like they know how to do so many more things than me. We all have things that we don't know how to do and that we want to learn. And the beauty in having kind of a women and ag kind of community is that you're able to better connect and find people to help you learn how to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that for those listening who are kind of in that same boat, that they will come and hold hands with us and learn how to do all these things. Because even if the 3 or 4 of us don't know how to do certain things, there's always other women who do know how and can
Yeah.
help teach, provide support and education and encouragement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Haley, we started out just about pigs, because
Right.
that's how we met. I sold Amanda found me on Pastor Pig and I sold her a pig and I don't know how I found Laura, but I found Laura
I
and
don't know. You hunted me out. You reached
I
out.
did.
You made
Yeah.
us be friends, and here we are.
I said, "Hello, Laura. My name is Molly. You will be my friend today."
I
But
said, sure.
yeah, but we started out with pigs because that's what we knew, you know, and then we realized that as women joined our group, some women didn't have any pigs at all. They were doing something else, and then I was like, well, our community like needs to grow, and then our podcast, progressed, and it's building a better community for everybody doing everything,
Mm-hmm.
and those are the things that we need to search out. But also, we talked a lot about just being the honest farmer, being honest with how you feel, not hiding those emotions, keeping your farm real. I post my good days, my bad days, my personal feelings about things. And that also brings in a whole new community of people as well that is in your support system. So it's being honest with yourself, and not hiding those feelings, not feeling ashamed of those feelings, and just seeking out who you truly are and finding other outlets besides just being the honest farmer, by finding other outlets that can help you reach those goals to where you don't feel like you have to internalize everything.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it's worth mentioning also that I haven't seen that kind of honesty until now on social
Yeah.
media. And it's hard knowing that I have these bad days, thinking that I am completely alone in those bad days. because I didn't see anybody else going
Yeah.
through this stuff. You know, they're only posting the good days. So then
Yes.
I'm talking to my husband, like, okay, so we can't post anything today because this might be the worst day of my life, you know?
No.
And how do you make yourself be that vulnerable when you go and you add yourself to these groups and you ask questions and they're like, you're an idiot. You need
Yeah.
to get rid of that animal. You know, like it's hard because I walk in and I've always asked questions, you know, like that's part of a recovery journey is that you have to be willing to learn something.
Yeah.
Like you have to be capable of change because that's the only way your life is going to get better. So I go in with this open minded, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm completely vocal about not knowing what I'm doing. I will say that every time. But
Yeah.
then I get such negative response back from so many people, the holier than thou people, and it's
Yeah.
not helpful. That's not helpful for anyone.
No.
I agree, but I would also say don't judge the world by LGD groups. I know we talked about that. Livestock guardian dog groups to me are the most brutal groups on the planet.
Oh
They
my
are hardcore.
I don't need
Well,
these things, apparently.
you know, I think too though, it's like I preach this all the time. People can get mad at me or whatever. I think the worst fucking thing that happened was fucking homestead YouTubers and Instagram, man.
Mhm.
I think it's the worst shit
Mhm.
because they post pretty women out there getting their pristine, pretty eggs, you know, or they're out there just, yeah. And I'm like, that's just not real.
No.
Like, or you compare yourself to them. You're like, how are they doing that? And I'm
How do
living in
how do they keep their coops that clean? That's what I want to know.
I'm
How
dude,
in
I
the
saw
world do you pull that off?
I saw bitches with fucking wallpaper and chandeliers in her chicken coop. I'm like, what in the hell?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
What kind of time do you have that you can do that? Or I
my
don't know. I don't even know how that works. So
my
yeah.
chickens are disgusting savages, man.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
But
Well, go ahead, Molly.
okay, but what I'm trying to say is, I think that we fall into that. We talked about this many times on our podcast. We fall into comparison. We fall into trying to be something that is not reality. You know, so therefore we feel like we are alone, and we're like, God, I'm running this shit show by my fucking self. Like I'm embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
But once you release that, once
Mm-hmm.
you start being honest, right? Then you are attracting the people that you need to attract.
Yeah, your tribe will find you.
Yes, they will.
I think
Yeah.
that's what happened with like Laura. This is how I ended up talking to all four, like all three of you, is because I was honest. I went there having not a great day, picking up a pig, and was like, "Help, just help, please. You're a person. I know you have feelings. I've met you. Help me." And that's what it has come to. It's I had to be pushed to where I was uncomfortable enough to be
Yes.
vulnerable again. Because whenever I get burned, I want to just reel back in, you know, and
Yeah.
I put it back out there again. It's hard. It's hard to do that when you're not feeling great and to say, I'm having a really hard time with this right now. And I'm like on the verge of tears. And then here's your opportunity that you can either like throw it back in my face and I'll crumble, or I'm going to get some really good feedback. Like that is a terrible place to be.
Yeah.
But
Yes, it is.
what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that I have really struggled with too, because I have always had an interest in agriculture. Like when I was younger, I was always interested in farming and stuff. In high school, I was really active with FFA. I was my chapter president and just did a lot of different things with that. I went to college for agriculture. I did not finish, but I've just always had a passion for agriculture, farming, all of those kinds of things. And my grandparents were farmers, but I was never a farmer. My parents are not farmers, but I have a brother who also has done a lot in agriculture, and he's younger than I am. Graduated from NC State University with a degree in ag business. And then, he now manages a ranch that is doing really, really well. They're doing a lot of great things in the cattle industry and with Wagyu specifically. And I feel like for myself, even when I would talk with him about certain things, I felt like an idiot because he has the education, he has the experience, he has all these things. And not that he is intentionally making me feel that way. A lot of that is my own insecurity and feeling that way. But I do think, and I've shared this before too, when I would reach out to like the cooperative extension office and try to talk with them about certain things, or we'd go to either cattlemen conferences, or we did a cattle 101 class. It was very, very informational, and it was so good. The information that we gained from that was amazing. But some of the people there that you run into are just like who you were talking about, Haley, where it's just like you're kind of met with a "you don't know that"
Mm-hmm.
attitude, and it's like, "Dirt, no, I don't."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to be open and honest so that maybe I can learn something. Like, I don't have the experience, I don't have the formal education, so I am coming here trying to learn because I'm passionate about this and I want to succeed. I want to do well with this for the animals' sake and for my family's sake. So can you just don't put me down, help me understand. And
Yeah.
I feel like I'm so thankful that our journeys have all led us together to be able to help each other with that, because I feel like that is something that I think we all hear frequently, is that it's really hard to find honest people who are helpful, especially in this industry. And I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple questions I'd like to get everybody's feedback on, if y'all are good with that, kind of in closing, because I know we're kind of running over, but I think it's been great topic. So how about I lob one out there?
Go ahead.
First question, what words of encouragement would you give to anybody struggling? Farmer, non-farmer. What would you tell them? Amanda, you're next on my screen. You're actually muted though. Haley, put you on the spot. What words of encouragement would you give to somebody struggling with some depression and feeling down right now?
It's not permanent. That is the best thing that I've been able to hold on to, is that no matter where you are in it, if you keep going, there is another side. It always will be. I've had really, really tough times, and sometimes they last a little bit longer than I want them to, the chaos of being on a farm. But it never stays that way. And there's always the little glimpses that I can find in the gratitude. I can always find some gratitude with one of these animals. I can always count on one of my pigs. One of them. He wants to snuggle with me. He wants me to lay with him. And if I have any of those days, he's the one I'm going to, and he's officially a pet. So that's not
good.
what he was supposed to be.
Right. Well, it happens.
Yes, but being gentle with myself and knowing that he has turned into a pet too, and not feeling discouraged about that. That was one of the things too.
Yeah. Molly, what would be your advice for a non-farmer or farmer either way struggling with depression?
I mean, a little playing off a little bit what Haley said, but to find the beauty in the tragedy, man.
Yeah.
There's always something beautiful in the tragedy, no matter what it is. We have, to not sulk in the tragedy, to use that to lead you and guide you, because there's always something that comes out of that is always beautiful. At this point in my life, I'm going through a lot of things, a lot of tragedies, but I always, every day, I wake up and I'm thankful that I'm alive. I got to see a new day, and there will be something beautiful that will come out of that. So that's what I try to tell people. You just have to find the beauty in the tragedy, man, because it is there.
It is. I love that. Amanda, how about you?
It's ironic that Molly said that because I feel like I'm kind of the same way in that I have to look for that. I like we can have the worst thing in the world happen and I'll go, well, at least blah
Yep.
blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to look for that thing because that is what helps pull me through. And so I feel like finding the beauty in the tragedy, but I also think if you're really struggling, for me personally, the times that I have really, really struggled, I have to be able to talk about it and get it off of my chest. And whether that is talking with a close friend or whether that is writing it down, whatever it may be. But I feel like there are times I just have to get it off of my chest. And that's also been really hard because I'm sorry if you can hear my geese. I had to open the windows to my car. I don't know if you can hear them or not, but they're making noise.
No, I can't.
Okay, good. That has also at times been challenging because I feel like I don't have very many friends I'm super close to. And the times that I have opened up to people who I thought I was close to, they stop talking to me. They shy away. I feel like that's been really, really hard because it's like opening up, trusting somebody enough to share a little bit with them. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
And so finding those people has been challenging. But I feel like I've got a good circle now and just so yeah, find the beauty and what is going on, even if it's really, really hard, even if it's just the sun is shining or my feet hit the ground today. I mean, that's still a big deal.
It
So
is.
finding the beauty and what's around you and what's going on in your world. And for me personally, it's being able to find trusted people that you really can open up and share the hard times with, because sometimes you just have to get off your chest and be able to sometimes even just saying it out loud, just being able to say it out loud and get it out there so
Well,
that you can put one foot in front of the other.
I had somebody tell me just the other day, they were like, one of the things that they do is they will, if somebody has hurt them or they're trying to express themselves to somebody, but they don't really know how, they'll write that person a letter, even if they don't give the letter to that person. They write everything down that they want to say to that person, and they may put it in a box, they may burn it, but at least they feel like they put that out into the universe.
I like that.
Which I thought was a neat aspect.
Yeah, I love all y'all's advice. I think it's beautiful. One of the lessons that I've learned from it, and I know it'll come back around, is, in the middle of the funk, you don't know what's next. You don't know if next is worth it. You don't know if it'll ever come out of it. But I have found that to be the lie that depression tells you. Brighter days are ahead. Look at us. The four of us here today have all had our dark moments, and yet we found each other and we have this great conversation. And the people that I've met through this journey have just really made my life much better than anything pre-farming. So to me, it's a hang in there. Brighter days are ahead.
Yeah.
One more in the darkest moments, in the most depressing moments that I've had here, were actually what got me closer to my higher power.
Yes.
I think that says a lot for me, because I feel like through sobriety, I can say I have such a great spiritual connection some days, and I'm like, I'm doing okay. I'm happy today. It's not about happy. It's not about good. And it's not about bad. It's about, I do not have control. And being around all of these animals, the reason they got me through it wasn't because I was happy with them every day. It was because every single day they showed me who was in control.
Yeah.
Yes. You know what I mean?
Love that.
And that's really what it was. It wasn't that it was butterflies and rainbows. It was rarely any of that. It was me calling my husband, "You're not gonna believe this one." It was always that. And then full circle moment every single day. I'm constantly reminded that my higher power is the only reason that I'm even standing here doing any of this stuff with all of these crazy animals.
Yeah.
It gets you through those moments.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's beautiful as well. So my last question is for the beginning farmers out there. Same thing. What's your word of advice to the new farmers out there feeling like they're alone and drowning? What would you tell them? Amanda, you wanna go?
I would just tell them find the sounder of Lady Hoggers.
Right. Yes. We're here.
Yeah. No, I think that it's just keep persevering. If you have, strong feelings that you really want to do it and you've got a goal in mind, you may take the path less traveled to get there. It's some people, not everybody's journey is going to be the same. We all live different lives. We all have different sets of circumstances. We all have different experiences. And I think it's just if you are really passionate about the goal that you have set, you may be hitting roadblocks and obstacles and all kinds of things. And it may not be that you need to change your goal. It may be that you just need to change the path on how you get there. And I feel like that would be the thing that I would suggest. Outside of that, I would say just try your best to find a community that can help you, because there are people out there who are eager and willing to help share experience and advice and things like that to help you. And those people can be kind of hard to find. But if you're putting yourself out there, I really think that you'll find those people. And I feel like those would be my biggest words of advice, probably to somebody starting out.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Molly, how about you?
I guess I would tell the first time farmer that they need to be free form.
Yeah.
We can't be so rigid,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
yeah. We can't be so rigid. Like it's not like, we're gonna clip ourselves out in a square, You have to be free form. You gotta be able to bend and move with the moments and to never think that, you have to do something the same way somebody else has to do it. You have to think outside the box. You have to be able to know yourself and mold your farm into who you are. Because once you start trying, I started my farm out being who I was. Everything went good. I started trying to be more rigid, trying to adapt to what I felt like other people were doing. And I fucked my whole system up, and then I had to go back. I had to go back to who I was. And I think that that's what they need to understand is your farm is a resemblance of you. It's not of anybody else.
Yep.
So you have to do it the way that you want to do it, but also roll with the punches,
I agree with that totally. I'm going to say mine because I want Haley to have the opportunity to close on this one and close out our episode. So what I would say to a beginning farmer is really pretty much what you ladies have said is, there's only one you, and nobody can be you. Nobody can be me, Amanda, Haley, or Molly. We're all our own individuals, and own that. Find your path, and don't forget to give yourself grace while you're doing it, because it's going to be hard. But we're far from perfect, but it's in my opinion, it's been worth it in the end. So Haley, you're our 1 year in person. So what would you say? You're the freshest right now.
I think everything that you said is spot on. And it's really not much different. It's just don't stop. Don't stop for the people that tell you can't do it. Don't stop for someone saying this is the only way to do it. Do it the way that you want to do it. Whatever way that is, whatever feels right for you. And it's either going to work or it's not going to work. Just don't stop after that. That was really the only thing that got me through most of the bad times was that if I've ever put my mind to something, I have never been unsuccessful. And I want to do this. And that was the decision. There was not really a plan. I learned a long time ago that when I make plans, God just laughs at me. So
Right.
I don't do that as much, but I do try things that are new. I try things that I think will work with who I want to be. Not so like, and what you were saying with the free form, like it just has to fall in a category of what I would be willing to do here. It
Yep.
doesn't have to be the end goal. And it rarely is the end goal. It rarely works the first time.
Right.
But when it is, like, don't you feel great? You know, like the more you know about things, I mean, it's incredible in just a year going from I'm getting goats and I don't really know why. We have some trees in the back. And then I sold those goats a few weeks ago, and it was so strange being able to answer so many questions about every animal here. And these people were brand new. This was going to be their starter herd of goats. And I was just like, wow, in just a year, I can answer these questions. Like in just a year, I'm completely different. And those insecurities do go away. They do.
Yeah, very good. Haley, I don't think that we have asked you yet. How can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out?
Facebook. My name is very common now. I married into the common name. Haley Williams, Haley, or you can look at Pastor Vision. We did create a page, and we have our pet bunny, our first rabbit, and he's just hanging out. He's our profile picture.
What was that name? I didn't quite hear it.
Pastor, like a pastor and vision put together.
Okay. All right. Pastor Vision. I like that. Very good.
Well, we rambled for some time today.
Yeah,
we did.
We did. But I think it was beautiful.
Yep.
I truly appreciate you coming on. I'll put my screen on. Hold on a second. I'm smoking a cigarette, but that's what I do. Anyway, I do thank you so much for coming on today and being with us, and
Yes.
you know, just being open. That's what we're about. You know, we want people to be open and be honest, you know, and I think it was a good job, man. I think it was a good one.
I loved it. Thank you, Haley.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. This is wonderful.
Yeah, you're welcome. So you can find Haley on Facebook. Look for the bunny. You can find her at Pastor Vision. Look for her there. Laura, you can find her a little bit of everywhere. Pig Nerd, Mayshawn. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amanda Buck Family Ranch, and me. You can find me, the Copper Penny. I'm all over the place. So, of course, you can find the Sounder as well. We're on all the podcasts. We're out there. We're on the Big Apple. We're on the Spotify. We're on the Anchor. We're on them all. So you can find us there. But I genuinely love talking to you, Haley. You need to join us back again one day, if you will.
Yes.
And so, how about we go feed them damn hogs and them churros and them chickens and whatever the hell else we got?
All right. Bye, y'all.
All right. See ya.